Hey guys, it's Jan, Not a Real Farm. So guys, it's about 20 degrees Celsius here today. And so the greenhouse is holding really well with temperatures. And the fact that I'm still able to come down through here and harvest tomatoes at the end, pretty much the end of October, should really give you an idea on just how much more control you can have over your food if you have a greenhouse. So we are down in here today just harvesting what probably may be the last of the tomatoes for the season. But we're going to keep it going. We're going to keep the videos going as long as we can. Got a few down there. So these ones are my Angora tomatoes. And they're pretty much like a saladette tomato. But at this point, with the prices of food, I'll take the tomatoes the way they are, even if they're a little bit smaller, as long as I don't have to buy them in the store. Down by the tomatoes, we have a whole other whack of blackberries that are starting to actually get bigger. And eventually what will happen is they'll change color. As long as we can keep it somewhat warmer in here where the temperatures, like today, for example, are 20 degrees Celsius, we'll be fine. And then moving on forward, I still have tomato blossoms that are coming through on some of the tomatoes, and a little bit of tomatoes left on some of the other plants because they're starting to form. Do I think we'll get a full-size tomato out of some of them? Probably not, but that's okay. We've had a pretty good, successful year with tomatoes this year. My herb baskets are doing phenomenal. So here we've got some garlic chives, we have got Greek oregano, and of course it's going to seed. However, we also have all heal. So all heal you can mash up into a paste if you've got a wound or anything like that. Look how long this oregano is. The basket is beautiful. Like I said, we're actually holding on to some really nice fall temperatures. So the herbs aren't necessarily ready to let go yet and go completely to seed. So we're still able to harvest those herbs. Now, I've been in here sort of picking away at everything, and these are the chores that are sort of tedious. So what happens is I get rid of all the additional huckleberry plants because we don't want to have those huckleberries growing through the winter, and they will. And then what I like to do is I like to clean up the greenery around the grapevine because it does drop a lot of leaves. But the grapevine right now, you can see, is starting to die. And then once the leaves have died down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be trimming the vine back down to about 4 feet. And that will allow it to send out some really nice shoots again for the next year. So even if you cut your vine this low, you're still going to get a big, massive greenery show from a grapevine. It's pretty awesome. So lots of cleanup to do here. So finally, our sunflowers have died off. And so what I'm doing is I'm waiting for the seeds to mature on some of these. This is a sunflower mix, so it has yellows and reds and everything involved with these sunflowers. But you can already see the sunflowers are starting to develop underneath. We've had lots of pollination. All I'm waiting for is the back of the seed heads to turn brown a little bit. This is more like yellow, a little bit darker than this before we pick the seeds. But you can see in there, there's a lot of seeds. And if we walk on through, we've got a magnolia bush that's still growing and it's going really well. Our zinnias are doing amazing. We have green onions that won't quit. So these are all multipliers that I had initially taken 2 to 3 cuttings of, and they've decided to grow back once again before the winter. So I'm going to actually be harvesting these green onions and then freeze drying them for the winter so that we have a supply of green onions. This is my Salazia. So now what's happening is it's turning silver and then it's going to be going to seed. So this one pretty soon I'll be able to collect the seed out of it. It's actually a pretty cool plant, really low maintenance. And then we've got way down here our bay leaves. Our bay leaf plants are doing great. I've got 3 of them. There's one around somewhere else around here. We'll find it later. Our ginger bush. So we'll be able to actually harvest these leaves and take them in and use them for tea, dry them out like normal. We can freeze dry the leaves as well and use it for tea. And then we have our gooseberries. So the gooseberries were sort of only about a foot high when I brought them in here, but now you can see they've actually gotten pretty taller. I'm trying not to hold on too tight to them though, because if I get in here, you can see they've actually got thorns all over them, and they hurt if you hit these thorns in the wrong way. See how long those thorns are? So next year we'll be able to have a whole harvest of, here we go, gooseberries. This one here is probably a different sort of plant that maybe some of you haven't heard of, and it's called lingonberries. And lingonberries are extremely healthy in terms of giving you that nice sort of vitamin C and a whole other bunch of health benefits by consuming the berries. And so what we've done is we've actually taken a bucket, drilled some holes in the bottom, and put our first few lingonberry plants in them. They don't grow very tall. As you can see, they only really grow this tall, but they give you this nice red berry on it. And check out the health benefits of lingonberries. You'll be really surprised. But these guys have flowered. So their flowers are very similar almost to a blueberry. And really good for your immune system. So we'll be sharing some of the health benefits going further once they get a little bit more mature, and you'll be able to see what we can do with it. But they're like the standard berry where you can save them, you can dry the seed, you can turn them into tea. But a lot of the times people make them into jam, or what you can do is you can eat them right off the bush. All right, let's walk on through. Still have cherry tomatoes. Look at all these blossoms, these new blossoms that have just started at the end of October. Isn't that amazing? So we still have a few little tiny black paste tomatoes that are left that we can harvest from here. One up here. And a lot of these, what I'll be doing is just using them right away, just because they're starting to dry up now that the weather's changing. Let's walk on through and see. Look at this. So we still have, even after all the temperature changes, tomatoes that are still trying to grow. Look at the size of these ones. I still have all these clusters of tomatoes. Isn't that amazing? All of them behind here. Now some of them are going to try to turn red before they get even any bigger, but that's okay. I'm still getting fresh tomatoes at the end of October, so that's amazing. Get all the new blossoms down here. This has been a very prolific year for tomatoes. I think it's one of the best years I've had for tomatoes. Check this out. Little cherry tomatoes. Coming on through. Look at all of these blossoms. Oh my goodness. So you can only imagine if I had this greenhouse heated, just with mild heat over the winter, that we would be able to pretty much grow all year long. Look at these. Those are my sweetheart cherry tomatoes. There's some up in there, and they're all down the vine. I'm almost gonna feel bad for clearing out some of this stuff and getting it winterized. Tiki torch is still tikiing. That's awesome to have in the fall. And then now a lot of these have turned to seed, so we can actually collect a lot of these. You gotta be careful with the tiki torch. If you take a look here, you see these spikes? When I clean these to take out the sunflower seeds, these spikes are really sharp, and sometimes they can cut. So I have to basically take these, roll it on the table, or however I want to do that, to make sure I crush these spikes before I actually take the seed out, because it's very sharp. So our kidney bean plants are finally dying down a little bit, and now you can start to see that the pods have that nice little ring to them and that the seeds are drying. When you take your bean pods, if your beans actually shake in the pod, then they're pretty much done. Look at all of these. These are the blue kidney beans. So We're going to have a lot of harvesting of those to do. A lot of the times, I've showed you before, sometimes I just actually leave the beans on the plant and then harvest them over the winter. It doesn't hurt the beans at all. More tomatoes. Check that out. It's amazing. I actually still have a ground cherry that doesn't want to leave or die. So this one is going all the way up. And so we do have a little bit of pods here on this one, but you can see it's not really going to develop very much in here. Look how long it goes. It goes all the way up here. All the way up. Unbelievable. Now it has developed a couple of pods in it. Now I've done a lot of collecting from these. These are a tall ground cherry, so they still taste like pineapple, but they're about twice the size of a regular ground cherry. So let's just take a look. For those of you that are familiar with ground cherries, so this is our biggest ground cherry that we've ever grown. You can see the size of it. And as soon as they're yellow, they're ready to eat. Now I'll show you what a regular ground cherry looks like. Let's look for one that's actually ready to be eaten. Here we go. So you can see this ground cherry is ready. So these are our pineapple ground cherries. Once the pod gets see-through like this, paper thin, it's pretty much ready to eat. So it's got that nice yellow to it. So this is a regular sized pineapple ground cherry. And here is it next to the large ground cherry. So you can see the difference. So the large ground cherries were a grow out that I decided to get involved in to see if we could actually help with saving seeds and making this ground cherry available to everyone. And so we'll be sending some of these seeds back to the original grower, and then we'll be offering these in our store. But you can definitely see the size difference between the smallest and the biggest. So pretty cool. And they both taste the same, which is kind of exciting too. So you get that extra big berry that gives you that pineapple burst. I'm still smack dab in the middle of harvesting my sesame, so I have to be careful here. I let the pods dry out. So now you can see all the sesame is starting to fall out. See if I can get closer. All the pods have cracked now. So it's perfect, except if you forget and you drop a seed somewhere. So I had this hole actually in my in my tablecloth, and I had dropped the seed by accident, and it got sprayed by the hose, and it started making a new sesame plant. So these are very viable seeds. They're easy to sow, easy to save, and sesame really needs no work to it. And now all you really have to do is just crack open these pods and get that healthy sesame out. Okay, and here we are with our honeydew. So this is what I'm looking for at the top when I want to collect honeydew, is I want to see that vine is actually dying or dead. And then we can basically just cut it from the vine and take it and harvest it and eat it. The other ones we got that are in here are a little bit small over in the corner, but we did manage to get one big one here, so we'll take our wins. So let's pop outside. I've got something to show you. So the other day I left my gate open on my garden, and even though we were in cleanup mode anyway, so it doesn't really matter a whole bunch, I just wanted to show you something. So they went in and of course they ate all of the tops of beets and everything that I had in there. Skipped the onions. We know we're safe with onions, but they did manage to hit all the beets and lettuce that I had left. So basically came in and grazed and sort of decimated this bed. They came down to my poor little crabapple tree and decimated the top of this, so it's all chewed off. Walked through the garden. Didn't touch my raspberries, but walked all the way through and got the rest of the Swiss chard that was left. I don't know how I did this or what happened that I would forget to shut the gate, but it happens. And so that's the end of my Swiss chard really for the year. We're not really going to get much out of it now. And so we're going to be taking that up. But they touched every fruit tree in here every piece of greenery except for the raspberries. And another plant of berries that deer don't like are haskcaps. So the haskcaps you can plant anywhere, and the deer, for whatever reason, will not chew them. They don't like the taste of the berries. And so that's why I promote haskcaps really heavily. If you're looking at getting some sort of alternate fruit, or what we call non-deer friendly fruit, where they'll just leave it alone and you can harvest and not necessarily even put it in a gate the way that I have it here. Haskcaps. Every single time I have a whole field of them, and every year the deer move past them, they never chew them. Check it out. It's been this warm out that the haskcaps have actually started to rebud. I've never had that happen. So they're hardy down to a zone 2. So check them out. They're haskcaps. Make sure that if you are going to plant them, that you are planting. They usually come in a pair. So one will pollinate the other, or one will pollinate 4 or 5 of them. Really great fruit to have. So check it out locally if you haven't had the opportunity to plant these. They're a cross between, they taste like a cross between a blueberry and a plum. For those of you who are interested in growing flax, flax can take a beating. So we've had 3 or 4 hard frosts, and the pods on the flax are still fine. You can still harvest these. You can actually just snap them off. Usually I like to trim them off just because they're so hard. And you can see here, I just break this open. Hopefully you guys can see. We've got some flax still. And the flax is unharmed by the weather. So you can leave this on until you're ready to actually harvest it. As a matter of fact, before it started freezing, we were getting new buds. So we've got quite a lot of flax to harvest, because a lot of these pods end up with anywhere between 50 to 100 seeds. So it's worth it to grow your own flax, especially if your temperatures fluctuate or it's cold like it is here sometimes. There we go. Now you can see. So the flax is actually unharmed by any frost. So go ahead, leave it in the ground and harvest it when you're ready. That's it for me today, guys. Thanks very much for joining Not a Real Farm. If you have any questions, please contact us at info@notarealfarm.ca, or take a look at our Etsy store at notarealfarm.etsy.com. See you soon.